Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to D20 Sundays. I'm your host, as always, Ian, the part-time Dungeon Master. So, I recently read a Reddit post asking which was worse, having to constantly remind a player how to play the game, or having to constantly rules check a Dungeon Master. And some of the responses I liked, others I was not happy about at all. At all. I was not happy about. So the general consensus has come to that you are not supposed to rules check the Dungeon Master. You're supposed to essentially go with what they say because they are the god of the campaign. They are the narrator, the storyteller. They are the runner of the rules. Well, that's not entirely true. You see, you're supposed to critique your Dungeon Master. You can criticize them so long as you're not just being a spiteful dick about it, but you're actually being a constructive criticism. That's what you're supposed to do as a player. That's, the story only works, the rules only work if both players and Dungeon Masters are on the same level. If they're on the same page, if they're reading the exact same rules. If the Dungeon Master has changed a rule or removed a rule, the players need to know about that. One person even mentioned that, if the Dungeon Master has made changes to the rules, he needs to be very clear about that, because if he's not, then it can cause a stop in the momentum of the adventure or the combat and so on, in which I agree with. Because the Dungeon Master needs to be clear about this. Because, say, you change a rule about how a certain spell works. Well, that's going to be a problem for the wizard if he's casting that spell, especially if it's in the middle of the combat and you didn't tell him ahead of time. Yes, he's going to stop everything to try and figure out why does this spell not work the way it's originally written. This is an important thing. That is an appropriate time to stop everything because there was a change that the player was not made aware of and that they should have known ahead of time. Because now they have to essentially change what actions they were going to take because of the new rule, or the lack of. But yes, as I said, criticizing your Dungeon Master is something that you can do as a player so long as you're not being a dick about it. Rules loring is a thing, nonetheless, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. In the Suriskin campaign, I have Regnus Willow. Yes, he's a player, he's a character, and he is my rules lawyer. He double checks everything for me. Whenever I make a decision on, either when we're recording or when, I'm outside of the game, he double checks and he asks questions. And normally I clarify them in one way or another. This is an important thing when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. Because like I said, the player and the Dungeon Master must be on the same page and the same level. If you decide this rule doesn't apply to your NPCs, you better have a very good reason as to why it doesn't apply to your NPCs, because it becomes very infuriating. If you remember, I did a video some time back about how this one Dungeon Master had essentially denied the rogue his bread and butter. The sneak attack. He gets it once per combat because he's no longer sneaking. That's not how it works. That's the rogue's bread and butter. That's how they get their damage. That's how they are useful, is that sneak attack damage. But yeah, so, like I said, the general consensus is that you don't criticize the Dungeon Master, which I feel is wrong. One person even said that if someone started rules checking them at the table, they would eject them. Why? The table's not the place to clarify a rule? I feel like this person maybe either didn't fully explain their thought process, or perhaps they did not understand what I was asking. I'm not sure as to which, but ejecting your player from the table because they decided to ask you about rules, that's dickish. Especially if you yourself have not been clear on the rules. Perhaps you worded it the wrong way, and the player is double-checking the rule to make sure that you are following the rule because of the way you worded it. Or perhaps the player doesn't fully understand the rule, and that they're trying to make sure that everything is going as it should be. Once again, this is an important thing. You can't eject a player from your table just because they're checking the rules behind you or in front of you, because they want to make sure everything's going the way it should be. Once again, the rules will dictate how players essentially take actions. If you make a change of a rule in combat, then their combat actions are going to change. They're going to find some other way of being essentially effective in combat if you take away one of their other ways of being effective. So, it really comes down to me is that if the Dungeon Master's been clear about the rules that they've changed or removed, or they're wording the rules themselves correctly, essentially read as written versus read as intended, or interpreted, depending on who you ask, these, I feel like, are very important things, especially when it comes to new players and veteran players. Because you can be like a new player, or you can be a veteran player, but there's also like that weird in-between where you're like a seasoned, you know? You're not quite, you know, I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for 15 years. You're not there yet. You've probably been playing for about 3 years. You're not a veteran player yet, but you're a player. And sometimes, you know, veteran players are like, that's not how the rule works. And they try and, like, clarify or, like, you know, gently nudge the Dungeon Master. It's like, hey, you know, it goes this way. And, once again, as the Dungeon Master, you have to be open for other interpretations, as well as able to meet a middle ground. And new players, they just might not understand what rule you're referencing or using, and they want to know why. As far as, like, you know, the people who said, like, you know, telling a player how to play their game, such as, you know, no, you use the D20 for that, or no, it's the D4, the pointy one, and, you know, other things like that, I can understand that, too. I've had my frustrations with that in a campaign before, to where we constantly had to remind this one other player, it's like, no, that's not what you roll in order to play. You roll this, and then you do this. It's not that hard. It's only Pathfinder. There's only plus 50-something skills. I miss Pathfinder. So much fun. So much shenanigans. But yeah, that's essentially my rant for today. I was talking about when it comes to which is worse, you know, a player who doesn't really pay attention or like constantly has to be, you know, reminded how to play the game, or a Dungeon Master, you have to constantly rules check. And I guess people misunderstood the, you know, having to rules check a Dungeon Master in the sense that, oh, you're just being a rules lawyer and, you know, you want to, you know, argue things. No, that's not what rules checking your Dungeon Master means. Having to rules check your Dungeon Master is, oh, hey, they changed a rule, but they didn't tell us about it. Or, oh, hey, they changed a rule again when previously it was like this. So can we get some clarification? It's stuff like that. And, yeah. I think that's about it I have for this video. Thank you for watching. Oh, by the way, I've got some merchandise. There's a link down in the description to a Zazzle storefront. I get about 5% of whatever is sold. And if you want to help support the channel, go down there and click. There's also a Streamlabs. I've opened that up for people to donate via PayPal and other stuff. I originally wasn't going to do any of this, but someone suggested that since I'm dedicating so much more time to this channel with not only D20 Sundays, but Dungeon Master's Corner, the Sriskin campaign, and now Magic the Gathering, that maybe I should focus a bit more on, you know, trying to monetize the channel in other ways, since I'm not at that 1,000 sub mark. And I guess they're kind of right. Maybe I should try and make some money off of this, since I've essentially been treating it like it is a part-time job. I put a lot of work and effort into these. I record these videos in batches, and then I edit them throughout the week when I get off work. Because I should go from work to gym to home, or just work to home to get these edited and everything. Excuse me. But yeah. Anyways, thank you for joining me for this episode of D20 Sundays. And I'll catch you in the next video, or even on the stream over on Twitch, for the Dungeon Master's Corner. Every now and then I'll also stream to YouTube, normally trying to broadcast something else, or it might be something Dungeon Master's Corner related, varying from one thing to another. Anyways, catch you next time.